The promise of peace. The stars were silent as the Council fleet drifted in orbit of the neutral system. Thousands of lights glowed across the alien ships, each one carrying delegates who believed today would bring peace. They had traveled far to meet humans, the new rising power of the galaxy. Stories about Earth had spread through trade routes, in taverns, and in the guarded chambers of leaders. Some said humans were unpredictable, others whispered they were fragile. Still, the Council agreed that peace talks must happen before humanity became too strong to ignore. Inside the main flagship, voices echoed through the grand chamber. Dozens of alien species sat in a circle, their translators glowing softly. Hope filled the air. One leader spoke of treaties, another promised trade, and others dreamed of controlling human curiosity. They expected a simple meeting, calm words, and a new chapter of unity. To them, humans were young explorers who only needed guidance. The fleets prepared a wide docking bay, polished and bright. Long banners hung in the chamber to honor the visitors from Earth. Music was played, and every small detail was chosen to show respect. They believed the humans would arrive in modest ships, humble and ready to listen. Many thought Earth would be desperate for allies, desperate for recognition. This belief gave the Council confidence. They would control the meeting, they would shape the future. But far from the flagship, on the edges of the system, sensors caught movement. A signal was detected, faint but growing stronger. At first they thought it was the human envoy. Officers smiled, voices rose in relief. Finally, they would see the mysterious species face to face, but the smiles began to fade when the object grew closer. It was not a fleet. It was not a group of shuttles. It was one single ship, moving with speed and silence that no one expected. The chamber fell quiet as updates reached the Council. Screens showed a dark figure cutting across the stars. The ship was massive, larger than anything the Council had prepared for. Its design was alien to them, smooth and sharp with a hull that seemed to swallow light. No markings of peace were visible, no banners, no signs of welcome. Instead, the shape looked like a weapon built for war. A shadow spread across the fleet as the human ship approached. Fear moved slowly through the chamber. Delegates leaned forward, waiting for the announcement that it was all a mistake. Surely humans would not send such a vessel for peace talks, but the reports confirmed it again and again. It was a warship, and its power dwarfed even the strongest ship in the Council's fleet. The docking bay stood ready, empty and silent, but the warship did not slow down. Instead, it stopped at a distance, far enough to watch, close enough to strike. The banners and music suddenly felt foolish. Every alien eye stared at the screens, at the ship that now hung like a blade over them. No words came from it, no signals of greeting. The silence was heavier than any voice. Some delegates whispered in fear. Others forced laughter, saying humans were only showing their strength to earn respect. But beneath the surface, terror grew. The Council had come expecting weak creatures who would beg for peace. Instead, they saw a single warship that could end them all. The air inside the chamber grew colder. Every second of silence made the ship seem more alive, more dangerous. Small defense ships from the Council moved forward to scan it. Their signals bounced back empty. Their systems failed to read the human design. No engines, no weapons, no life signs could be measured. It was as if the ship was built from secrets the galaxy was never meant to understand. The smaller ships quickly retreated, afraid to provoke it. Inside the flagship, leaders argued. Some shouted to send peace messages immediately. Others demanded the fleet prepare for battle, but no one dared to fire first. They all knew the first shot could mean their end. And still the warship remained silent, watching. The Council had promised their people a future of peace. Now they faced a nightmare of their own making. The humans had come, but not as students, not as beggars, not as explorers needing protection. They had come as a shadow of war, a reminder that peace was never guaranteed. The delegates stared at the ship, their voices fading into whispers. For the first time in many cycles, the Galaxy Council did not feel powerful. They felt small. Above them, the terrifying warship of humanity waited in silence, and the promise of peace began to die. The warship's shadow, the warship stayed still, drifting like a predator that had already chosen its prey. Around it, the Council fleet hovered in uneasy silence. No one dared to move closer. No one dared to open fire. Every delegate knew that a single mistake could unleash something they were not ready to face. The ship's shadow fell across the alien vessels, blocking their light and filling their view screens with darkness. It did not need to act. Its very presence was enough to bend the Council with fear. Inside the flagship chamber, panic whispered from one delegate to another. Some believed the humans had sent the wrong ship by accident. Others argued that this was not an accident at all. Perhaps humans wanted to test them. Perhaps this was their way of saying that peace was not built on words but on power. The council members, once proud, now sat with trembling hands, their eyes fixed on the silent screens. No signal came from the human ship. No welcome message. No attempt at conversation. The council sent dozens of hails across different frequencies. Each one disappeared into silence. It was as though the ship refused to acknowledge them, as though it was watching, studying, waiting. The silence became heavier with every passing minute. What kind of species entered peace talks with a ship designed for war? What kind of people believed silence was stronger than words? Small vessels from the council attempted again to scan the warship. Their systems glowed and buzzed as they searched for data, but the results came back broken and empty. The ship's armor absorbed their signals, its engines gave no heat, its weapons revealed no energy. To the council, it was like scanning a ghost. The smaller vessels retreated once more, their pilots too afraid to press further. No one wanted to be the first to vanish under its guns. On the surface of the council chamber, anger grew. Leaders raised their voices, some calling for immediate retreat. Others shouted that they could not show weakness. If they ran, the humans would see them as prey. If they stayed, they risked destruction. The chamber shook with arguments, but every voice held the same thread of fear. Their power meant nothing under the gaze of that warship. The ship itself moved at last. Not an attack, not a blast of weapons, but a slow, deliberate drift. Its engines made no sound. It passed close to one of the council's strongest cruisers. The alien crew on that cruiser froze in terror, waiting for the strike that never came. The warship simply glided past, its dark hull reflecting nothing, its form swallowing light. It moved as though it had all the time in the galaxy, as though it was untouchable. Every eye in the chamber followed its motion. The delegates whispered again. Some claimed it was showing dominance, circling like a hunter. Others whispered that the humans were sending a warning. Do not underestimate us. Each theory spread more fear. The council, once united in dreams of peace, was now broken in confusion. Nobody trusted the other. Nobody trusted the silence. One delegate, old and weary, finally spoke words that chilled the chamber. He reminded them of forgotten records, whispers in ancient files. Long ago, a fleet had gone missing at the edges of known space. They had reported strange signals before silence claimed them. The few fragments of their last messages described a ship that moved without sound. A ship that erased fleets without leaving a trace. The council had dismissed those records as myths, tales to frighten soldiers. But now, staring at the terrifying warship, those myths felt real. The chamber quieted, the old delegate's words settling into every heart. What if this was that ship? What if humans had carried that shadow across the stars? And if it was true, what chance did they have? The warship finally stopped its slow drift. It hung directly in front of the council's flagship, its dark hull filling every screen. The delegates stared at it as though they were staring at their own deaths. Lights along its surface glowed faintly, not like weapons, but like eyes opening in the void. The silence stretched until it felt unbearable. Every alien heart beat faster, every voice stilled. Then, for the first time, the warship spoke. Not in words, not in language, but in sound. A deep, low hum shook across the system, a vibration that rattled metal and bone alike. The delegates covered their ears, their ships trembled, systems flickered. The sound was not a message, but a reminder of power. It was the voice of something that did not need words to rule. It was the sound of shadow, of terror, of control. The hum faded, leaving silence once again. The warship remained motionless as though it had never moved at all. The council chamber was filled with pale faces, trembling hands, and silent fear. They had expected peace. They had expected weakness, but what they received was shadow and silence, and both were deadlier than war. The delegates sat frozen, knowing one truth: peace would not be decided by them. It would be decided by the will of humanity's warship, a shadow that hung over their stars like a dark omen, and in that silence the galaxy realized that peace had already been broken. Fear among the stars. The Galaxy Council fleet floated in silence, trapped under the shadow of the human warship. The darkness around it was not empty space anymore, it felt alive, heavy and filled with the threat of destruction. None of the council ships dared to move. None dared to speak first. They all waited, hoping the humans would explain why they had come with such a weapon, but no explanation came. Only silence. Inside the flagship chamber, fear grew sharper. The delegates, once proud leaders of many worlds, looked like frightened children now. Some kept their eyes fixed on the floor. Others whispered to their aides. Nobody dared to raise their voice too loudly, as though the warship itself might hear them. The council was meant to be the most powerful unity of species in the galaxy. Yet here, under the gaze of one human warship, they felt weak and small. Rumors spread quickly among the fleets. Soldiers spoke in hushed voices, passing old stories like fire through dry grass. They said humans had built ships that fought like beasts. They said one human ship had destroyed an entire invasion armada centuries ago, and the survivors had erased the records to hide their shame. Others claimed humans did not fight with fleets at all. They fought with single warships so strong they did not need allies. Every whisper made the shadow of the warship heavier. Every rumor made silence louder. In the chamber, voices finally rose again. A delegate with scaled skin slammed his claws against the table, demanding answers. "We cannot sit here like prey," he growled. "We must demand to know why they insult us with this shadow of death." But even as he spoke, his voice shook. His eyes flicked nervously to the screen where the warship floated. His words sounded strong, but his body betrayed his fear. Another delegate, tall and pale, whispered that perhaps humans were testing them. "Maybe they want to know if we can stand firm in fear. Maybe this is their game." But nobody wanted to play such a game. Nobody wanted to test what happened if they failed. Ships in the fleet adjusted positions carefully, like dancers afraid to step too close to the edge of a cliff. No weapons were fired, but defensive systems came alive, glowing faintly across the dark. The captains prepared quietly, knowing that even if they fought together, their weapons might mean nothing. The warship did not move. It only watched. A sudden burst of static filled the council's channels. Delegates leaned forward, expecting at last to hear human words. But the sound vanished as quickly as it came, leaving only broken echoes. Some thought it was a malfunction. Others feared it was a warning. The chamber filled again with whispers. Fear made time slow, and every minute felt like an hour. Then the warship moved once more. It turned slightly, its massive hull shifting until its front faced the heart of the fleet. The action was small, but it sent waves of panic through every ship. Captains shouted for shields to rise, commanders ordered fleets into battle formations. Yet no attack came. The warship's silence mocked them, daring them to strike first, daring them to show weakness. The oldest delegate spoke again, his voice low and cold. He reminded the chamber of a truth they had forgotten. "Humans," he said, "have always been a question no one could answer. They are fragile, but they survive. They are outnumbered, but they endure. And when they fight, they do not fight to protect themselves, they fight to end their enemy completely." His words sank deep, because no one could argue with them. The warship outside was proof enough. As if answering his words, the warship released a single flash of light. Not a weapon, not destruction, just a beam that shot into the void, splitting darkness with brilliance. The light struck a small moon on the edge of the system. In one silent moment, the moon cracked apart, shattered into glowing fragments that drifted across space. Gasps filled the chamber, screams echoed through ships. It was not an attack, it was a demonstration. The warship could have destroyed them. It could have burned their fleets and shattered their flagships. But instead it chose a moon, a lifeless rock. The message was clear. The humans did not need to kill them to prove their power. They only needed to remind them that everything in space, ships, moons, worlds, could be broken if they willed it. Silence followed again. The fragments of the moon drifted slowly, glowing in the darkness like a warning written across the stars. No one dared to speak now. No one dared to breathe too loud. The fear that spread through the fleets was not wild panic anymore. It was something colder. It was respect mixed with terror. It was the knowledge that the galaxy's balance had shifted in a single moment. The Council, for all its power, realized one thing: peace would not be given on their terms. The humans had not come to beg. They had come to show that their voice was not made of words. Their voice was warships, shadows, and silence. And under that silence, the galaxy trembled. The truth of humanity, the silence after the shattered moon, was heavier than any battle cry. Across the council fleets, crews stared at their screens, hearts pounding, minds frozen. The warship had not fired at them. It had not demanded surrender. It had only shown them what it could do with a single beam of light. That was enough to change the air inside every chamber, enough to make even the proudest commanders feel helpless. Inside the flagship, no one spoke for a long time. Delegates sat in the dim glow of their consoles, their voices locked inside trembling bodies. They had gathered here to shape the future with treaties and speeches. But the future had been shaped already, by a single action, by a single warship. At last, the silence broke. A younger delegate, her voice unsteady, whispered the question that everyone feared to ask. What do they want? The words hung in the air, fragile and heavy at once. No one answered. No one could. Humans had not spoken. Humans had not sent diplomats. All they had sent was a shadow wrapped in steel. Then, for the first time since its arrival, the warship sent a signal. Every ship across the system received it at once. The screens inside the chamber lit up with a single image, dark stars behind the silhouette of the warship. A voice followed, deep and calm, neither warm nor cruel. Humanity does not ask for peace. Humanity does not ask for war. Humanity asks for respect. The chamber filled with sharp breaths. Delegates exchanged looks of disbelief. The voice was not loud, but it carried weight, like a mountain pressing on their chests. The voice continued. You called for talks. You prepared for words. But words are fragile. Promises break. Treaties rot. Power is the only truth. You see it now. You feel it now. If you wish for peace with us, then you must first accept this truth. The warship's words struck deeper than any weapon. Delegates who had believed humans weak now saw them as something else entirely. Not reckless, not foolish, but cold and deliberate. The council had thought they could control humanity with clever words. Instead, humanity had shown them a truth that could not be argued, a truth carved into the stars. The old delegate with weary eyes leaned forward, his voice shaking. They are not asking. They are warning. The human voice returned once more. We will not harm you. We will not hunt you. But understand this. If you bring war to our kind, if you think our silence is weakness, you will face the shadow of our ships. And when the shadow falls, no fleet will stand, no empire will endure. The message ended. The screens went black. The warship returned to silence. In the chamber, panic erupted again. Some delegates shouted that the humans were declaring themselves rulers of the galaxy. Others argued that this was mercy, that the humans were offering peace under their own terms. Voices clashed, filled with fear, filled with desperation. But beneath the chaos, every heart knew one thing. The galaxy had changed forever. Meanwhile, in the fleets, soldiers whispered in awe. They had never heard a voice like that, calm and final. Some felt hatred, others respect, but none felt doubt. The warship had proven its power without a battle. And power, in the end, was all that mattered. One by one, the council delegates fell into silence again. Anger could not erase the memory of the shattered moon. Pride could not silence the voice of the warship. All they could do was wait, watching the shadow that refused to move, waiting for a sign of what came next. The warship drifted slowly, circling once more. Not in haste, not in threat, but with patience. It was as though the humans were giving them time to think, to absorb the truth. No ship dared to stop it, no ship dared to approach. The shadow passed across their fleets again, reminding them that every second was borrowed mercy. Finally, the council's leader stood, her voice steady though her eyes betrayed fear. We came here for peace, she said. If humanity demands respect first, then we must decide. Will we bow to it or will we challenge it? No one answered her question. The silence of the chamber was a mirror of the silence outside. For the first time, the galaxy's greatest powers realized they were not deciding humanity's place. Humanity was deciding theirs, and still the warship waited. The galaxy's terrifying lesson. The warship remained where it was, silent and unmoving, a shadow carved into the stars. No banners, no colors, no symbols of peace or alliance, only the shape of death drifting above the fleets of the galaxy. Every captain, every soldier, every delegate understood the truth now. Humanity had not come to beg. They had come to teach. Inside the flagship chamber, the air was heavy. The council's leaders sat frozen in their seats. Their eyes were fixed on the dark screen, waiting for another word from the humans, waiting for something to explain the silence. But no second message came. Only the memory of the voice that had spoken once and shattered their pride. Some delegates whispered that they should bow to humanity. Respect them, give them what they ask, they said, and they will leave us in peace. Others, trembling with anger, argued that bowing meant slavery, that humanity's shadow would never leave the skies once it was accepted. The chamber broke into desperate debate, voices colliding like storms, yet no voice carried strength. The shadow of the warship had taken it all. Across the fleets, fear grew into something colder. Soldiers no longer spoke of victory, they spoke of survival. Officers looked at their crews and knew that if the warship opened fire, there would be no time to fight back. Engineers shut down weapons quietly, as though even aiming them might provoke destruction. The galaxy, so proud of its power, felt smaller than ever before. The warship drifted closer once more, slow and deliberate. Lights shimmered across its hull, faint and ghostly, like eyes opening in the dark. The fragments of the shattered moon still floated nearby, glowing softly like scattered embers. It was as though the warship had written its lesson across the sky. Power was not in words, not in numbers, but in the will to use fear itself as a weapon. At last, the warship spoke again. The voice was the same as before, calm, deep, unshaken. "You wish to speak of peace," it said. "Now you understand what peace means to us. Peace is not given. Peace is earned, and peace is kept only when respect is stronger than fear." The chamber fell silent. The voice was not shouting. It was not cruel, yet it struck deeper than fire. "Know this," the voice continued. "Humanity does not seek war. Humanity does not seek conquest. But if war comes to us, if conquest is forced upon us, then we will not fight to defend. We will fight to end, and nothing will remain of those who stand against us." The words sank into the hearts of every delegate, every soldier, every leader. No one dared to answer. No one dared to test if the voice was true. Then, without warning, the warship turned. Its engines glowed faintly, pushing its vast shadow away from the fleets. Slowly, silently, it began to leave. No weapons fired. No final threat was spoken. It simply drifted back into the darkness of space, vanishing the same way it had appeared, without sound, without explanation. The chamber filled with trembling breaths. Delegates stared at one another, unsure if they should feel relief or terror. The warship had spared them, but had it spared them out of mercy? Or had it simply judged them unworthy of destruction? The question burned in every mind, and no one dared to speak the answer. In the fleets, soldiers watched the shadow fade into the distance. Some fell to their knees in silent prayer. Others whispered that they had just seen the end of arrogance in the galaxy. Captains marked the moment in their records with one simple truth: humanity was not weak, and humanity would not be controlled. When the warship was gone, the silence it left behind was almost worse. The council chamber sat in uneasy quiet. No victory had been won, no treaty had been signed, but every leader knew this day would mark history. From this moment forward, no fleet, no empire, no council would forget the shadow that had drifted over them. The old delegate, his voice rough and tired, spoke the words none could deny. "Today we came to teach humans peace. Instead, humans have taught us fear. We came to show them strength. Instead, they have shown us truth. From this day, no star in the galaxy will shine the same way again." No one argued. No one could. The galaxy's most terrifying warship had come, spoken once and left without firing a shot. And yet in its silence it had done what no battle could. It had broken the pride of the council. It had written a lesson into their hearts. From that day onward, the galaxy lived under a new shadow. Not of war, not of treaties, but of respect. A respect born not from choice, but from fear. A respect that would never fade. And in the endless dark, somewhere far beyond the fleets, humanity's warship continued its silent path. A reminder to every star it passed. Peace is not made with words. Peace is made with shadows.